This was our game a little over a year ago. Our team of inexperienced game developers made it in 48 hours during a game jam, mostly just to have some fun and get better at making games. Since that prototype, we've gone through countless iterations, been invited to multiple conventions, and somehow won a bunch of awards. But most importantly, we've completely redesigned our simple little twin-stick shooter into a full-on roguelike. Why did we do that? Well, to answer that, we're gonna have to go back where it all started. The original game jam. To start off the game jam, we were given the simple prompt of bubble. After brainstorming, we had a bunch of ideas, but we didn't want to do anything too obvious, so we immediately scratched off anything with underwater bubbles, soap bubbles, until it eventually hit us. Speech bubbles. Immediately, we had so many good ideas, and we started pulling inspiration from workplace comedies like Office Space and The Office, where the main character is just slowly having the life drained out of them by their job. What we ended up with was a game where you played as an underappreciated employee in an extremely toxic workplace where all your coworkers are constantly shouting insults at you. That sounds pretty terrible, but luckily you have a megaphone that lets you suck in those insults and then shoot them right back out. Think kind of like corporate Kirby. After 48 hours of very little sleep and extremely rushed development, we eventually had a fun little game where you could run around, suck in insults, and fire them back at your coworkers. And apparently it was pretty fun because we ended up winning Best in Show at our local global game jam site. But by winning that game jam, we were immediately entered into a state level competition where we were given 6 more weeks to keep developing the same game. Only problem is we had no idea what to do. So how could we take our simple twin-stick shooter idea and make it more than just constantly yelling at coworkers? The answer is quite simple, really. You redesign the whole thing and make it into a roguelike. Throughout those 6 weeks, we created a bunch of new levels with unique objectives and added more enemy types and insult types. We also added the very first boss to the game, the CEO. Once you finally make it to him in the game, his giant chair turns into a tank and he just starts steamrolling through the entire level. With all of these additions that we have been adding, our demo was night and day from where it was after the game jam. And because it turned out so well, we ended up winning the Best in Georgia award for winning that competition.
And that team was Suck It Up!
That was already super exciting, but then we got invited to all sorts of conventions, and it really motivated us to start to turn this project into a full game. But if we wanted to make this into an actual roguelike, we had a lot of problems to solve. Our biggest problem was that our game was only 10 minutes long. So before we spent hours making new levels, leave it to the nerds to make some tools. Now, instead of having the same few levels repeat over and over, we could create an almost infinite number of distinct layouts for the player to explore. That helped a lot with making the runs feel a lot more varied, but it also revealed a much bigger problem. Even with a wider variety of levels, after about 10 minutes, the game still started to feel a bit stale. It didn't matter which level you were in, you were still using the exact same abilities in the exact same way. So how did we add more variety? The answer's simple. We didn't go back to our Miro boards and design a bunch of new stuff. No. We decided to steal. Well, we didn't steal everything, but when we look at Risk of Rain 2, they already have a perfectly good item system. Items are one of the biggest things that keep runs in Risk of Rain 2 feeling so different. That was exactly what our game was missing. So we started to build our very own item system. We created items that could improve your projectiles, change how your megaphone worked, affect your movement, and a bunch of other stuff. Now, every run could play out differently depending on which items you found. It felt like the ultimate power fantasy. When we brought the game to conventions and put it in front of players, people loved it. Players were constantly trying out different builds, collecting items, and desperately trying to defeat the CEO boss at the end of our demo. But once their 15 minutes were up, they kept asking the same question. Is the full game on Steam? And that's where our Kickstarter comes in. So far, we built the foundation for the game, but we still need the resources and funding to turn that foundation into the full roguelike we want it to become. If the Kickstarter gets funded, it'll give us the resources we need to create 3 full biomes, 3 bosses, and a ton of additional items. For just $10, you'll get a copy of the game when it launches and have your name included in the credits. Because of how Kickstarter works, if we don't hit our goal, then we don't get to keep any of the money, so if you want to support us, that would mean so much. Anywho, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!